I'm Michael Bain and welcome to Triggered. This is the second part of our special look at training for red dot sights, working with my friends at Wyoming Tactical, Jason Coutreau and Jason Wilson from Lucid Optics. We've already gone through a lot of training. We've got a lot of more drills to do today. Hey, let's head to the range.
Well, the drills that I chose to use, especially initially, is because I want to develop the student's skill set. And that's something that we're going to be going into here shortly in the afternoon, because most people are transitioning to a dot for self-defense. Okay, so your baseline skills need to be sound. Driving the gun out, transitioning target to target, trigger press, grip. Okay, I want to focus on those skills early because I want the students, I want their fundamental sound before we move into more of the self-defense drills. Now, what we're going to be transitioning to this afternoon is more cognitive processing, okay? And this is the huge leap that we make between skills in isolation and application of skills in context. And this is a critical point to remember if you're training for self-defense. I'm never going to disparage somebody for going out and shooting time drills and pushing their speed limits and pushing their accuracy limits. But don't go out and do a bunch of time drills and then go home and say, I'm ready to defend myself. Because here's the thing, if you're doing a time drill, you know what you have to do and you're just waiting for a buzzer to go off. In the real world, you have to process that information and understand what's going on, react to it, and then respond. That creates a whole new timeline and a whole different set of issues from self-defense versus, say, a competition shooter.
Rotate. Now your muzzle's in line with your target, and you're just going to drive straight out. If you get about here, that's when you're going to bring in your forehand. Okay, continue to drive out. With appendix, the difference is when I draw, what I need to do is I need to open it to hit. So I need to make sure that when I draw the gun out of the holster, I'm not flagging myself. I don't want to lose things there. So I'm going to come up the same thing. I'm going to hit that biomechanical lock. Okay, but now what I've got to do is I've got to rotate and twist before I drive out. Okay, that's the big difference. 2, 2, 2. Guys, when you're doing this, I don't want to see a double tap. And for those of you who are competitive shooters, you know exactly what I'm talking about. What we're looking for here is a controlled pair. I want you to make sure that you see that bullet strike before you fire the second round. Because if you got to make an adjustment midway, you can't do that if you're just pressing the trigger as fast as you can. When we're done with the fight, and this is something we should get in the habit of doing everywhere when we're shooting, okay? It's a safety thing when we're out on the range, but in the real world it becomes more important, okay? And that's a search and assess. So when we get done shooting and doing what we need to do here, okay, we need to come back into high compress ready, and before we could put the gun away, we need to make sure that we're done. Okay, so we're gonna look around, look behind you. When you're doing your search and assess, you're looking for 4 things. Who do I need to shoot? Who do I not want to get shot by? Who can I help? And a position of advantage. Cover, concealment, get the drive with your eyes, and then move your body. And if it takes, if you got to stand here and go, okay, I'm on this one, look, and then move, I got no problem with that. Okay, we can only shoot so fast. The gun only operates so fast. So where we make up time is that time we spend moving target to target.
We've got a couple of important points for you to remember here. The first is that a red dot sight isn't magic. The fundamentals still apply. Second point is, if you don't know how to shoot, the red dot isn't going to teach you. We've got lots more from Great Guns Range in Nunn, Colorado and Wyoming Tactical when Triggered returns.
This week's Triggered is brought to you by Lucid Optics. On target, under budget. Franklin Armory, home of the Reformation. And Honor Defense, hey, with a brand new gun on the way. Lipsy's has outdone themselves with this gun of the month. It is just too cute. It's a .22 caliber Ruger Bearcat, which of course is the smallest of the Ruger single actions, but this one has a couple of interesting twists. A 4.2-inch barrel with adjustable sights, an unfluted cylinder with a roll mark of bears and cougars on them, a really classic image. What you end up with is the perfect beginner's single action. If you've got a daughter, you've got a son that you'd really like to get into the finest guns ever made, classics, this Bearcat is exactly the right gun for you. Lipsy's Gun of the Month, Ruger Bearcat, adjustable sights.
Welcome back to Triggered and our special look at training with a Red Dot sight. Now, if you're thinking of using a Red Dot sight as your everyday carry, there's some bullet points, so to speak, that you're going to really need to pay attention to. The first is get a quality dot. Now, if you want a cheap dot, you can go on something like Amazon Optic Planets and you can find a Red Dot sight for $35. It's a $35 Red Dot sight. If your life depends on it, you're going to need to have a quality Red Dot sight. That's not a big secret. Second point, quality installation. Now, I have seen installation jobs, especially using the existing dovetail on the slide, where if you shook it hard enough, you could probably shake the dot out of it. Better to have a professional do the installation, or if you have a gun that has some sort of mounting system, like the Glock MOS, like the one available on the SIG 365 XL, on many of the Smith & Wesson M&P pistols, then it makes it a lot easier. Third thing that you really need to think about is your holster. Now, if you've been carrying a gun on a day-to-day basis and you got this holster that you really like, it may or may not work with a Red Dot sight. I had that problem with my very first Red Dot sighted Glock. I had a holster that I absolutely loved, and it absolutely did not work with the dot. Most holster makers now are very cognizant of that fact, and you can specify when you get that holster, say maybe in the future I'm going to maybe get a Red Dot sight. So you don't have to change holsters if you're careful when you order the first time. Finally, dry fire to teach yourself on how to acquire the sights. And so only at the point that you can easily come up, acquire that sight, are you ready to carry it every day. Let's go back to the range.
Your entire skeletal structure is supported in the pelvic girdle. You do damage there, they're going down. Now that doesn't mean they're out of the fight, but you put them on the ground. Limited mobility. Focus on the target and bring the dot into it. Okay, and when you move, I want you to move at the waist, okay, not the hip. So I'm moving, I'm here, I'm here. It's probably like trying to put the death grip on it with the firing hand, right? Okay, instead of doing that, try and get about equal grip with both hands. Think of where you've got your knuckles crossed in the front as a hinge, and push and drive and put all the pressure that you can with your palms to the back of that back strap. That will help you to control the recoil. Competition guys are taught, bring your gun up here to reload. And they say that because, okay, now I can see what I'm doing with the gun, I can see the target. Bullshit. It goes back to that we cannot focus on multiple focal planes. You can focus on one thing at a time. Here's the other thing. You've got multiple aggressors. And let's go through the scenario. I'm pumping gas and this dude's in front of me. He's the decoy. I burn him down. Now put the gun up in front of your face like you're gonna reload. His buddy comes up behind him. Okay, now not only do I have control of the gun, but I just broke his nose with his own gun. Stop it. Now, when you do your reload, when you bring it back into high compress ready, go, okay, bring it into high compress ready. Now I come up behind you, okay? I can't get to that gun. That's a critical thing if you're in a fight with multiple aggressors, especially if you're dealing with people who understand combatives.
First, let's spend a little time with Jason Wilson from Lucid Optics.
I honestly think we're going to see Red Dot sights evolve into smaller platforms. I think you're going to see them evolve into purpose-built, larger window, more modular with reticles even. I see that you'll have hybrid Red Dot sights that will work with a magnification system where you can run them both eyes open with zero parallax, as well as adjust into a magnified system. We've seen that evolution in rifle scopes. Went from high magnification systems to a low magnification system. For a Lucid product, the L7, 1:6, is a hybrid start in that direction. You're going to see that technology of low magnification available in Red Dot sights, I believe, and in a switch view is probably going to be one of the things we're going to see first. We're seeing more and more law enforcement acceptance of the Red Dot sight on a pistol platform. At the moment, I think 35 to 40% of law enforcement have authorization to use a Red Dot sight, and about 10% of them are actually using them on their platforms. I think it'll take about 3 years before you see pretty much nationwide acceptance there for law enforcement. And so in a 5-year platform, we'll have pretty much all law enforcement military using a rear-mounted Red Dot sight of some sort on their pistol platform.
You don't want to leave your seat because we've got lots more from Wyoming Tactical and Lucid Optics here at Great Guns in Nunn, Colorado when Triggered returns.
This week's Triggered is brought to you by Cimarron Firearms, King of the Cowboys, Lipsy's and their Gun of the Month, Tandem Cross, making good guns even better, and Ammo Man. What's inside your ammo can?
Welcome back to Triggered and our very special two-parter on learning to use a Red Dot sight. Now here's the $64,000 question. Do you remember the $64,000 question? And if you do, you're too old. Is a Red Dot sight faster than iron sights? Let's go ask Jason what he thinks.
Inside of 5, 7, 10 yards, a dot probably is not going to be faster. In fact, studies have shown that we have a training peak. They call it speed peaking. People that have learned to shoot essentially point shooting or target focus type shooting, where their sights are in their line of sight, but they're not necessarily using them, but they've had the repetitions, they've had that practice to where they don't necessarily need them. A dot's not going to give you an advantage there. Now you start getting beyond 10, 12, 15 yards and out, the dot's always going to be faster and it's probably always going to be more accurate. Dry firing home is going to be a critical component if you're using a dot. Again, you have to have those fundamentals mastered. The best way to do that is sit at home, dry fire. Practice driving that gun out, making sure you're picking up that dot every time the gun comes out. And if you're not picking up that dot, get a partner, have him turn it off randomly so maybe you don't get that dot every time. You train yourself to go to those iron sights. Again, the way our brains are wired, if we have the tool, we think that we have to use it. So with a dot on the gun, our first instinct is always going to be to fish for that dot. We need to train that out of ourselves so that if we don't see that dot right away, we're immediately going to our backups. There again goes back to our iron sight discussion.
I hope that these two shows have helped you make a decision on whether you want to commit to a Red Dot sight or not. I think the key learning point is that you're going to have to practice, but that goes exactly the same for iron sights, it goes for scopes, it goes for anything. Remember, these are perishable skills. And you may say, I know how to do that, but if you're not out there practicing, you don't really. So thanks to everybody at Lucid, Wyoming Tactical, and of course to Great Guns for loaning us their range. I am Michael Bain. You can find Triggered on michaelbain.tv, on YouTube, on everest.com, and soon many more places. We will see you next Wednesday.